Welcome to Veterans United, a program sponsored by the Firewatch, Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. I'm Nick Howland, Navy veteran, your host, and Executive Director of the Firewatch. In this program, you'll meet 2 or 3 veterans who will share their challenges and experiences since leaving active duty. You'll also meet a couple civilians who are doing great things for veterans here in Northeast Florida. In the meantime, you can help. There's a role for everybody. Visit thefirewatch.org and register as a watchstander. Learn to identify the risk signs of veterans in crisis. Learn to get veterans the help they need. Together, we can end veteran suicide here in Northeast Florida. Enjoy the program.
Welcome everyone to the 5-Minute Salute, and today we are honored to have Bonnie Walton with Florida Blue. Bonnie, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking, Dan.
And what are you doing these days for Florida Blue, Bonnie?
I am a full-time care manager in the federal plan. So I help members with coordinating care to get them back home safely from the hospital. And as a extracurricular position, I'm also the Director of Communications for VetNet.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about VetNet here in a little bit, but so as a care manager, how many patients, customers do you have responsibility for?
It can depend anywhere from 20 to upwards of 60. So it just really depends on the acuity of the patient.
Wow. And how long have you been a care manager at Florida Blue?
About 3 years now.
Okay. And is that since you transitioned from the United States Army? Is Florida Blue your first job?
It's my first job since coming off of active duty, but I was in the reserves during my time in the Army. I spent 3 years on active duty. During my time as a reservist, I always had civilian employment.
Awesome. And in the last 3 years, you've earned your MBA, correct?
That's correct, from Florida State University.
So, and did you do that remotely as well, or?
I did, yeah. I chose to do it that way. I actually wanted to do it that way. And it actually worked out very well because last spring, when everybody was transitioning their classes from on campus to a remote setting, I was already transitioned. So,
wow. And where did you get your undergrad? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would have had to do to transition to remote anyways.
Right. And where did you get your undergraduate degree?
Indiana University, Purdue University, Indiana.
Awesome. Very good. And so you're from, you entered the Army from Indianapolis, Indiana, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about your Army career on active duty and then in the reserves?
Absolutely. I joined in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was a part of the 801st Bravo Company Combat Support Hospital. They're now called field hospitals. So I was there for a couple of years and I was activated. I was sent to Fort Bliss, Texas, where I was cadre at the Warrior Transition Battalion. I was a care manager there as well as a little bit of exo time. I was there for a couple of years. Then I was stationed in Florida. From there, I went to Fort Stewart, Georgia, and that was my last assignment in the Army.
So how did your time in the Army prepare you for what you do now?
Well, with the Army, I traveled around. I got to meet people from all over the country, even different parts of the world. And it really helped me to deal with different types of people, as well as I worked with civilian employees, Department of the Army civilian employees. So those are federal employees, and I work in the federal plan for Florida Blue now.
Awesome. Now, where are your customer patients now located? Are they all in Florida, or are they anywhere around the country?
All over the state of Florida.
Okay. And then you track them and make sure that they get the care that they're entitled to, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. So what are you doing as an extracurricular? You mentioned VetNet, and what do you do? What is VetNet, and what do you do for VetNet?
So Florida Blue has several different communities that anybody can get involved with. They can join and just help out as needed, or you can take on a position as a director. So I wanted to do a little bit more for veterans and their dependents. So I do I'm fulfilling the director of communications role, and that is a position that requires me to inform people throughout the company, staff throughout the company of upcoming events, newsletters, SharePoints, communications.
Right. So why do you do that?
Because I feel like veterans are so trained, they have so much to offer, and I feel like they need an advocate to help bring them into the company, to help others in the company see how much value they have. Plus, I just loved being in the Army. I miss it, and it's a way for me to kind of still have my foot in the door a little bit.
What do you miss most about your time in the Army?
All the fun physical stuff.
Such as?
Running, rucking, the German badge that I competed in, just being on my feet. I have a desk job now, and I really enjoy what I do, but it's just nice to get up and run around.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Bonnie, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your your continuing service to our country. You were on active duty, reserves, and you've continued your service to your community and your fellow veterans. So thank you for doing that. And as for everyone else, until next time, keep watching out for each other.
Hello, I'm John Rutherford from the United States House of Representatives, and I am a watchstander.
Hi, I'm Michelle McManaman from Operation Uniform, and I am a watchstander, and so is everyone in my organization.
I'm D'Amica Jackson. I'm the president of the Jacksonville Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and I am a watchstander.
Hi, I'm Luke Lewis with Xera Realty.
I am Ant Stroud with the Ant Stroud Group.
I'm Bruce Thompson. I'm the Vice President of the Veterans Chamber of Commerce.
And I am a watchstander.
I am a watchstander.
I'm a watchstander.
Each year, over 6,000 U.S. military veterans take their own lives, including one per week in Northeast Florida. The Fire Watch is our community's fight to end veteran suicide. Join us. Become a watchstander today at thefirewatch.org. Together, we will end veteran suicide. Welcome to another episode of From the C-Suite to the C-Suite, a program sponsored by the Fire Watch, Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. In this program, we highlight the experience of veterans who have transitioned successfully from active duty military to business life as owners of their own businesses. 1,300 active duty military members separate each day, and it's a particularly vulnerable point for a veteran. So we hope that if you're out there getting ready to transition, or if you're a veteran who recently transitioned, you can learn a thing or two from our programs. I'm Nick Howland, your host and the Executive Director of the Fire Watch, and with me today is a special guest, Brian Rolfe from Pet Supplies Plus. Brian, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Nick. I appreciate it.
Well, tell us a little bit about Pet Supplies Plus.
Pet Supplies Plus, we've been in the business now about 5 years. We've had our first store open in Atlantic Beach 4.5 years.
Okay.
Going on 5 this summer, and our second in Orange Park, about 3 years. We just opened our third in North St. Johns County, off 210. About 4 weeks ago, so exciting there, and got into the pet industry, obviously, after I got out of the Marine Corps back in 2014, but it's been a great business for us as a family. My father and I are co-owners.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's just a fun business to be in.
When did you buy the franchise rights first?
So I retired in 2014.
Okay.
I continued to fly for the Department of Defense as a contractor overseas for a couple of years,
Yep.
doing some intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance work. as we kind of looked for the right business model.
Yeah.
Didn't really have a desire to go to the airlines.
Right.
So we found Pet Supplies Plus after a long search. It just fit us,
Yeah.
the brick and mortar feel, the mom and pops feel.
Right.
Very cool company. We kind of exploit the larger buying capability because it's a franchise, so we can match prices with the PetSmarts and Petcos of the world.
Okay.
But because we're privately owned, locally owned,
Right.
we can bring that local feel, support what we want, veterans, etc.
Yeah.
So it's neat to bring that, together to exploit that niche between the small and the big. It's a neat concept.
Well, and you mentioned it. The other two are big corporations. Yours, Pet Supplies Plus, is locally owned and, of course, veteran owned, which transitions to the question. You did 16 and a half years in the service. Tell us a little bit about your Marine Corps experience.
I loved the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Big green machine. Retired early when they were off from the early retirement back in 2014. Out of San Diego, wife, 3 young kids, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
For us. So got out with a slightly degraded pension, but that was okay. Picked up a business degree in MBA while I was in through Naval Postgraduate School and decided to go the business route. But loved the Marine Corps, the friends, the families, everything, most of the deployments.
Right.
Iraq, Afghanistan were what they were. But I was an F-18 pilot by trade.
Okay.
So as Marines, we do both primary MOS. Of course, I flew quite a bit, but then also did some good ground duty, whether it be training here in the States, training new officers at Quantico, Virginia, Afghanistan, acting as the future operations officer on the ground over there. So all in all, great life experience, learned so much to take forward into the civilian world.
Fantastic.
Wouldn't trade it.
Do you wish you had stayed in longer so you could try the F-35, Navy and Marine Corps variant?
A little jealous bone there. I do. I was the age group to where, some of my friends were the first skippers of those squadrons.
Really?
Yeah. VMFA T501, good friend Greg Suma, he was a skipper there. And Tyler Bardo, VMFA 121. They took that squadron out to Yuma. So, yeah, seeing that jet, obviously,
pretty nice.
The new car smell, a little jealous bone there. But
well, at least the next Top Gun is coming out, right? I think they're talking about the end of this year.
Well,
keeps getting delayed.
someday.
How frustrating to us. Yeah.
Someday, right.
Very good. Well, when you got out, tell me about your biggest challenge you faced.
The I don't know question that we all do.
Right. Searching
even
for purpose, uncertainty.
Right. And I think we can talk in circles about how to prepare and everything else, but some of the phrases that I love, plan early, plan often, that we learn as military men and women.
Yeah.
And then my second one that I love so much, no good plan really succeeds or lasts through first contact.
Right.
And with the enemy, and in this case, the enemy is the civilian world. We're not getting our paychecks on the 1st and 15th,
Yep.
TRICARE isn't necessarily going to be there for us, holding our hand. So really, I've talked with folks that are getting ready to get out, and I think you have legitimate trades that you can take forward in the civilian world, whether you're a pilot or a mechanic or whatever.
Absolutely.
And then we have the ones that we all say, hey, you were in the military, you should use your leadership.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? It's subjective. And so by planning early, I think you can identify something that you want to do.
Great advice.
You can start talking, you can start networking. Do I want to be in business? Do I start that schooling? Too often I think we put our eggs in too many in one basket, that they're just going to love me because of my leadership experience.
Yeah. Well, of course, when you separated, you kind of half separated because you mentioned that you flew for the federal government for a little period of time.
Right.
But then what got, at full separation, but it was a skill set that translated. Sure. Well, owning a pet supply company is absolutely not a skill set that translated, with the exception of perhaps the soft skills, leadership, initiative, hard work. Tell me what you learned from the Navy that is translated to your success at Pet Supplies Plus.
Well, from the Navy and Marine Corps.
Sorry, the Navy and Marine Corps. Apologies.
No, that's fine.
I'm a Navy veteran, so that's how
I hear you. I hear you. We're Department of the Navy, the men's department. But that said, just everything from dealing with folks of all race, color, creeds, you name it, a good slice of Americana, instead of just coming up in your comfort zone, just being able to deal with life. And from whether it's on a ship or in Southeast Asia or on deployment in combat zones, you're forced to use people skills, interact with folks that you might not have ever otherwise. So what really, I think, aside from technical skills, are those communications, the means of being able to walk into a room and maybe not know anybody in the room, but feel somewhat comfortable to start shaking hands and talking with folks. And that conveyed for me to Pet Supplies Plus. I joke all the time, when I am talking with somebody that I do let know what I did, they ask or whatever, and I say, yeah, I used to fly, Hornets, selling dog food and flying an F-18, the skill sets are nearly identical. And they look at me a little strange. But that said, the leadership, the soft skills, like you said, do convey to leading a team, even a retail team.
Absolutely.
Because people are people and they still need leadership. They still need training.
Absolutely.
Standardization. We treat our customers like you'll never see a customer treated at another pet store. And that takes product knowledge. That takes all of the key tenets that you train and talk about in the military.
Great advice. Well, Brian, how can people who are watching this, how can our viewers find their nearest Pet Supplies Plus? I know for certain I'm never going anywhere else but Pet Supplies Plus, veteran owned and operated by you.
Well, I appreciate that. So we're out in Atlantic Beach, right off Atlantic Boulevard there near the LA Fitness. Great store. Actually was the #1 Pet Supplies Plus in the country.
Fantastic.
For customer service and such in 2019. Our second store in Orange Park is just south of Orange Park High School off Landing.
Okay.
Right by the BJ's. And then we just opened up on 210, heading west from 95, right before you get to the Publix on your left. And exciting, we're about to start construction on store 4.
Awesome.
Got to keep that location a little quiet yet, but we're looking forward to it. The community here has been amazing, and we treat them like they should be treated, and their pets are, obviously, we build it for them, but the humans are welcome. So
awesome.
It's good to have them.
Brian Rolfe, Pet Supplies Plus. Brian, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of From the C-Suite to the C-Suite. The Firewatch is Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. There's a role for everybody. Join us as a watchstander. Learn the risk signs of veterans in crisis and learn how to direct veterans to the help they need. www.thefirewatch.org. Thank you. Nick Howland, Executive Director of the Firewatch, Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. Veterans at risk of homelessness are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide. This December 31st, the CDC will be lifting its restrictions on residential evictions. Thousands of struggling veterans could find themselves without a home. You can help. If you know a veteran at risk, direct him or her to thefirewatch.org, where we maintain a veterans resources guide. Everything from emergency financial assistance to transitional housing. Together, we will end veteran suicide.
Hello, I'm Captain Bean, host of the 5-Minute Salute. It's a show sponsored by the Firewatch that highlights the men and women who have bravely served our great country. Each week, I chat with them about advice they have for other veterans and how they have transitioned back into civilian life and the support systems that help them through along the way. Through initiatives just like this, the Firewatch is aiming to reduce the number of veteran suicides each year. I thank each of you for your interest in joining the show and supporting this great cause. Together, we can make a difference.
Welcome to another episode of From the C-Suite to the C-Suite. In this program, we highlight the successes of veterans who have transitioned from active duty military to the civilian business world. Why? Because veterans are dying at a rate of 1.5 that of civilians by suicide. We lose over 6,000 U.S. military veterans a year to suicide, and one of the most vulnerable points is that transition period, that first year from when a person transitions out of active duty military to the civilian world. So we hope that by highlighting the successes of folks in and around Northeast Florida who have gone through that transition themselves, that new veterans out there can learn a thing or two. I'm your host, Nick Howland. Navy veteran and executive director of the Firewatch. And with me today is a great guest, Alton Chamberlain of Superior Construction. Alton, thanks for being with us today.
Pleasure to be here, Nick.
Tell us a little bit about Superior Construction.
Superior Construction deals in heavy civil construction, a lot of roads, bridges. Our main clientele is the DOTs. We operate in 8 states and seasonally vary between 700 and 1,000 employees.
Awesome. But you were not a civil engineer in the service. You were an infantry officer, right?
That is correct. I was an infantry officer. Pretty much the only quality I had in my head was leadership, and I found a way to apply that in construction.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it?
I've been in the heavy civil industry for 5 years now. I was in the military for 11, and don't see myself looking back as far as the heavy civil is concerned.
Cool. Well, the question we always ask in the show, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you got out of the service and transitioned into your current engineering career?
Really, I think it was a two-part issue. 2 issues I had to overcome was the camaraderie, losing the benefit of having everyone push behind you and being part of a team. And then the other aspect was, you had that service to a higher good, to the country, to your service members to the left and right of you. And I think I've overcome both of those by reaching out to other vets and mainly the folks that I served with and seeing kind of how they navigated the transition from uniform to out of uniform, and then losing the higher purpose of serving your country. I found that in construction anyways, you deal with very salt of the earth, blue collar folks, just like I did in the infantry. And you build, you see something come to fruition that's on paper, and you see that process of it being built. And I'm not serving my country in the same capacity as I did before, but it's gratifying knowing that you're part of that and you're part of something larger than just yourself.
Oh, yeah. Those 2 great points, Alton, because we hear that all the time. Camaraderie is something people lose when they get out of the service, and sense of purpose. In fact, sense of purpose was one of the things that I struggled with when I got out. And camaraderie, you hear all sorts of solutions. I mean, yours, you and I talked beforehand, and you found it through networking with other vets. And in your current industry, to some degree, the structure of the industry is similar to the structure of the military. So therefore you get some of that camaraderie. I've heard interesting ways that people help solve that issue, and that is they join sports teams, a softball team, or they look for networking groups. Like locally in Northeast Florida, we have Vets on Tap. But that's really interesting to hear how you solve the sense of purpose. I myself did it by getting into the defense industry, and where I was as soon as I got out of the military. My transition occurred right during 9/11, and I, rather than going back in the service, went into industry, and I found my sense of purpose there. Yours is a sense of purpose from watching something get built and something get completed. Correct. And that is such an ethos of a active duty military member, and that is watching jobs get done.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit more about some things that you've done with Superior Construction that are like, hey, this feels like I was in the military.
Well, I mean, given my role, it's very similar to the same role I served in uniform. Getting information, making decisions, getting buy-in from my subordinates. It's a natural transition, and I could go through a litany of projects that I've completed in the past, but it just comes down to that leadership, and that's one thing that I think I had doubts in myself before I got out was, how am I going to make this transition? I don't have the skills to do any of this. All I know how to do is be an infantry officer. Well, those are so transferable. I mean, and I found, we have some vets that work for us, maybe not the same career path as me, but by and large, if you're able to take that ethos and that work ethic and just the grooming that you've had in the military and apply that to whatever industry, you're going to do fine. And I think a lot of vets have doubts until they get out and they start to see success in themselves, in whatever industry it is. And it was a little threatening getting into an industry where, hey, my peers have almost a decade on me, and they have a specific, PE civil engineering background. Well, I've overcome that.
You've overcome that. That is a fear that you
For sure.
feel a lot, particularly among young officers, because you're watching your friends go out in professional careers for 4 or 5 years, whatever your service commitment is, and you feel like you're behind.
Exactly, but it's not insurmountable. You just apply what you know and the skill set that you've learned and gained in the military, and you're going to be fine. You're going to exceed most people's expectations or your peers' expectations because you have those skills. You may not know you have those skills, but you have those skills.
You do, for sure. So one other thing we were talking before the video, And that is that you and I both used a headhunting firm when we got out of the service. I used a junior military officer firm. I think you used one. They call them JMOs.
Correct.
Tell me about your experience there.
It was very eye-opening as far as the swath of experiences I could have and the different geographical locations and scope of work I could be doing. And honestly, construction appealed to me. And, I interviewed with a few larger named companies that, anyone would recognize. And the office setting just didn't seem for me. I kind of wanted to be out in the field. Yeah, I spend most of my time behind a computer, but I get to go out in the field and see things being constructed. But the JMO experience was kind of a whirlwind. It all happened very fast, and I had a number of different offers, and that was the difficult one, deciding what ultimately I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and what career potential was out there. And that's kind of the lens you have to look at it at is what is going to benefit me long term, not the immediate, not right now, but where am I going to be able to progress on forward and make a career out of something? Because that's what I think a lot of military people can associate with. I'm not buying in for 4 years or whatever it may be. Yep. I'm looking for a career.
Yep,
and that's the biggest advice I could give is don't pick something spur of the moment. Make sure it's something that you're happy with, you're going to be satisfied with, and you have a potential for progression on forward.
Yeah, and what an ideal career you chose, because you get that sense of camaraderie out of it, you get that sense of purpose, you get that sense of drive, and your skills, leadership skills you learned in the Army are perfectly transferable
for sure
to your current career. Alton Chamberlain, great advice. Thank you so much for being on the show. If people wanted to find you at Superior Construction, how would they do that?
Go to superiorconstruction.com, and all the links are there.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of From the C-Suite to the C-Suite. The Firewatch is Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. There's a role for everybody. Become a watchstander today. Learn the risk signs of veterans in crisis and learn how to get veterans the help they need. Visit thefirewatch.org. Together, we will end veteran suicide. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Veterans United. The Firewatch is Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. There's a role for everybody. Join us as a watchstander. Visit thefirewatch.org and learn to identify the risk signs of veterans in crisis, how to ask veterans if they need help, and how to get veterans the help they need. Together, we will end veteran suicide. How to ask veterans if they need help, and how to get veterans the help. I screwed up again. Sorry.